Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Hi to those of you who are watching at home. We are going to start in the next 5 minutes, so please just bear with us, but stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome to The Forge. Welcome to our live stream for the Work Women Do event that we have today. We are so excited for the program that we have today. We have two fantastic speakers and two amazing performances. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about The Forge. So my name is Fezohle. I'm the Performing Arts Programmer at The Forge. And that means multiple things. It means I do everything and nothing at the same time. But let me just tell you about The Forge and the Commune. So The Forge is a progressive Pan-African radical space. We offer space to artists, progressive artists, theatre makers, cultural workers, essentially. We also offer space to various activists, social movements, and various organizations across Johannesburg and also across the continent. We are deeply Pan-African, and we want to make sure that a radical politics emanates from the kind of culture and political work that we have in the space. So that's The Forge, and it's a pretty big space. Today we are in the theater, as you can tell. We also have a gallery space. We have a viewing space at the bottom. And then we have a foyer, which we've had fabulous events in as well. So please let us know. Please send us an email if you would like to collaborate with us. Across the road is the Commune Bookshop. The Commune Bookshop is also an extension of the politics of The Forge. It is a Pan-African radical bookshop. It also doubles as a coffee shop and an event space. There's some fantastic stuff that happens in that space. Apart from book launches, we have a weekly Friday DJ, which is always a really cool session, so please come from 1 to 3. We also have Conversation Fridays happening this Friday as well. I'll let you know in a little bit who is speaking and so on. We have a couple of really fantastic programs on that side as well. So please, just come and just chill out, all right? And so the space really is for you to sit and read and think, but it's also a space for you to just relax because we realize that capitalism is really hectic. And it means that particularly workers and young people literally don't have space within the city. And so that's what The Forge and the Commune are. They are spaces that are reprieves from the really difficult work that we do every day. Of course, because it is COVID-19, a lot of the events that we typically have are masked up, socially distanced, and a lot smaller than what we would actually like. But in this crazy pandemic, we are forging ahead. So today we have a fantastic lineup of speakers. Firstly, we have our co-director of operations, Yvonne, who is going to speak to us a little bit about the history of this day. So this day has just been kind of commercialized and codified in very capitalist language. So there's very much like girl boss, and all these weird things that are happening on this day. But actually, the history of this day is deeply working class. And Yvonne is going to tell us a little bit about that history and remind us actually why this is an important working class holiday and not necessarily a holiday for us to be taking more selfies, which shine, take all the selfies you want. But also just kind of remember the roots of the work. And also I just want to say that beauty work is political work. The hairstylist that I routinely go to today was kind of lamenting about the fact that International Women's Day means very little for her because of all the pressures that come with being a single parent, that come with being a working woman, that come with being an immigrant in South Africa. And it was really sad to hear that kind of thing because of what I mean when I say that this holiday has been commercialized and capitalized and taken out of its roots. And it's also really difficult to hear when we realize that capitalism has really done so much in removing people's humanity from them. And so just this is a day to remember working women, but also we live in South Africa where a lot of women, not through any fault of their own, through very serious structural and political problems, don't have work. And so today we also want to talk about the fact that there are different kinds of labor, that some of it is acknowledged typically and others isn't. But we want to also talk about the invisibilized labor that we see women do all the time. And so we're going to have a really interesting discussion doing that. So Yvonne is going to give us a little bit of that history. Sorry. And then we have Dr. Lynn Ossome, who I know from the university currently known as Rhodes, who's fantastic and brilliant. She is a senior research specialist and feminist economics lead at the Institute for Economic Justice, and just a really incredible human being. Then we have Sis Florence Sekolane, who is a representative of Izwi Domestic Workers Alliance. And we are so excited to hear Sis Florence's contribution today, and the real political work that Domestic Workers Alliance does in this country, and domestic workers do. We think that care work is in fact political work, and so we're so excited to have that contribution today. Then we have some fantastic musical acts. We have Tsoness, who is a singer that fuses a mix of genres into a soulful play of music performed mostly in Tswana and English. And then we have Buttercup, a neo-soul artist based in Johannesburg. Her songs take a listener on a journey of love, loss, and healing. We're so excited for this work. As I'm speaking, I have this booklet in my hand of one of the organizations that we are affiliated and connected to that really produced such a very powerful booklet that is very useful today. It's called Woman of Struggle, Woman in Struggle. So please come to the shop and get a free copy of that if you would like to also kind of get a better sense of the history of this day, but also of what COVID-19 has done to a lot of the movement actions across the continent that have been really difficult for us during COVID-19, and also really helpful statistics for those of us who are researchers, for those of us who are trying to find new ways to mobilize, activate, educate, and re-energize ourselves as militants across the world. So I'm going to hand over to Yvonne, and then I'll be back in a little bit to introduce our musical act. Yeah, Yvonne.
Molweni nonke, njengoba setshilo uFezi, igama lam ndinguYvonne Phyllis. I'm the co-director of operations at the Forge. So what I'm going to do today is to give some context and some history to why we have this program today. And I'm going to read a text by Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. It reads as follows. A century ago, Clara Zetkin spoke to revolutionary women in Germany, to revolutionary workers in Germany, urging everyone to center working class women in the struggle for liberation, for socialism. Only in conjunction with the working class woman, she said, will socialism be victorious. Zetkin and others carried the torch of women's struggle into the new century and rallied women from across the world around a call for an international day of action. Women have joined the struggle in huge numbers over the years. We are still struggling, fighting for our lives, and we need to know our history, the history of those who chose resistance. In the words of Kijin, who led an uprising against feudal imperial China. Unbinding my feet, I clean out 1,000 years of poison. With heated heart arose all women's spirits. In 1924, lifelong revolutionary feminist and artist He Xianling spoke in front of 2,000 women workers, peasants, students, mothers, calling them to overthrow feudalism, overthrow imperialism, in the fight for the emancipation of women. It was the first International Workers' Women's Day in China, and a milestone for women's and national liberation. Today, we rescue the calls of those who came before us and tell the story of women who led rebellions and others who continue to build resistance to neoliberalism, reactionary populism. We will continue to fight, to refuse, declared Saïd Menepi from a Moroccan prison. The disease of silence will not reach us. Godavari Paraluka, an Indian organizer in indigenous and trade union movements, reminded her oppressors, there are some people yet who cannot be purchased. How have women organized and resisted? For artist Nina Simone, there was one small starting point. We never talked about men or clothes. It was always Marx, Lenin, and revolution, real girls' talk. With conviction to radical ideas that unearth the roots of how injustice prevails in our society, women deepened our sense of what holds us down. The conservative logic of women's role in class society is wrong. It says, when it says, our emotional, physical, and interpersonal labor is natural, invisible, and unimportant. These notions maintain women's oppression, since huge quantities of work, domestic chores, care work, social reproduction are largely done by women and girls and go unrecognized and without compensation. This is what we call patriarchy. Women are always at the center of capitalist crises. When the sexist and racist economic system needs more profits, more work, more bodies, it hits working women of the world the hardest. Women dominate the informal work sector. Our wages and our jobs are precarious, providing barely enough to live. But as Brazilian Marielle Franco wrote to her council, though we may earn lower salaries, be relegated to lower positions, work triple work days, be judged for our clothing, be subjected to sexual, physical, psychological violence, killed by our partners, we will not be silenced. Our lives matter. In the workplace, but also in the home, the value of women's work is exploited. Even we forget the worth of our own work, of raising children and sustaining the people we love. As Anna Julia Cooper, a founder of the Colored Women's League in 1892, explained, not one of the issues of this plodding, toiling, sinning, repenting, falling, aspiring humanity can afford to shut her out or can deny the reality of her influence. Women's labor creates a daily fabric of solidarity in the world. Without it, everyone would suffer. Women need to be in every room of our revolutionary movements, sit at every table, making decisions about our struggles. Magwande, Pambili, Ngosi.
Jabong everyone. Now we are going to get some fantastic music from Tsoness. I just want to make a point, I think a political point about musicians. So typically when we get these kinds of events, the musicians are just there as fillers for a nice time. And we really don't believe that at The Forge. We believe that cultural work is political work. As Claudia Jones says, that a people's art is the genesis for their freedom. So today, all of our artists are not just fillers and extras. They are actually doing really important political work. And they are doing the work that is what we call the vernacular. So today, what we have done is we've launched our radical calendar, which has been a process. It's the Forging History's radical calendar, and in that calendar we are celebrating important dates that shaped the continent's history, but we also are celebrating important progressive people from across the world who have shaped our thinking as intellectuals, as activists, as ordinary people across the world. And so particularly with artists, we think, as Nina Simone says, it is important for artists to reflect the times that they're in. And so we're so very, very, very excited to have Tsoness start us off today. And like I say, do some very important discursive work, actually, because that is what cultural work is. So give it up for Tsoness.
This song is called Mosadi O, meaning this woman. It is a womb song. A womb is a place of creation inside of us. This song is for a woman who is without child, who wants child, a woman who has given birth to children, but they've been taken away. Or a woman who was with child, but the child did not make it. The womb is a symbolism of a place of our creation. With this song we say, let the woman be given what is worth to her. May she benefit from the work of her hands. May she benefit from what she has nourished. Sikhule mutihare Selelo sa ma yo Sita utriwa keman Nchafatsa peu, nchafatsa peu, nchafatsa peu, motenga ame, nchafatsa, nchafatsa peu, nchafatsa peu, motenga ame, nchafatsa peu. That was Mosadi or This Woman. The next song we're going to do, we often hear a lot of women say, all the women in me are tired. Today we're just saying that all the women in me are rising. All the women in me are rising. All the women in us are rising. We are coming together to do things together, to make things happen. You and I, you and I, you and I, you and I. The magic is in you and I, and you and I, you and I, you and I. This one is called Fearless. Because where we are going, we need fearless women, fearless humanity. You and I can, you and I can, you and I, you and I, you and I, you and I can, you and I can, you and you and I can build a world of dreams in the graveyard of dark nightmares. You and I can raise towers from ruins, nations from aborted generations. You and I can have anything that we agree upon. Change the game, make new rules. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? Oh, you and I can. You and I can. You and I can build a world of dreams in the graveyard of dark nightmares. You and I can raise towers from ruins, nations from aborted generations. You and I can have anything that we agree upon. Change the game, make new rules. Can you see it? Let's not waste it. All I wanna do is try with you. All I wanna do is fail with you. I want us to be fearless, fearless, fearless. All I wanna do is win with you. All I wanna do is build with you. I want us to be relentless, relentless, relentless. Oh, 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 oh. Fearless, 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 we are fearless. What is fear to you and I? It's just a setback. Tragedies for you and I, they turn into blessings. Losses for you and I, regained and multiply. Falling for you and I, strong foundation. You and I can have anything we agree upon. Cause you and I are a rare combination. You and I, you and I, you. All I wanna do is try with you. All I wanna do is fail with you. I want us to be fearless, fearless, fearless. All I wanna do is build with you. All I wanna do is win with you. I want us to be relentless, relentless, relentless. You and I can. You and I can. You and I can. You better believe. You better believe you. You and I can. 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 We can build the world. We can build the world. We can build a brand new world. We can build a brand new world. We can do it, we can do it. All I wanna do is try with you, fail with you. anything that stands in our way. I'm Tsoness. Thank you very much.
How incredible. Oh my gosh, can everyone give Tsoness another round of applause? Like truly, truly amazing. On the 4th of March was Mam Miriam Makeba's 89th birthday, which we, as the Forge and the Commune, commemorated. And we did that in collaboration with a vocal and songwriting, wow, English, a vocal and songwriting duo called Thesis ZA. And in parts of that discussion, they talk about the ways in which Makeba was able to really kind of think through melody and think through indigenous sound so that it could be almost futuristic and to like kind of change the way that we like just heard African melodies. And as this performance was happening, I was just like blown away by the musicians, but also blown away by what I suppose academics and I suppose people across the world called the dialectic. And I think there was a real dialectic that was happening between all three musicians there, speaking to one another and kind of thinking through what was being said, but through a musical conversation. And that's what I mean when I say culture for us is not just an add-on, it's not just a cherry on the top, it's actually really important discursive and political work. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So now we are going to hear from Dr. Lynn Ossome. Dr. Lynn Ossome is just going to give us a little bit about who she is, what she does, and her reflections on what women do, the work that women do. So, Dr. Lynn, if you could join us. Okay, so as I was speaking about the dialectic, I realized that we should actually have two of our speakers in conversation with one another, and Dr. Lynn has just alerted me to that. So can we also have Sis Florence to the stage? So, do we have a third mic? Yes. Okay, cool. So let me actually do some facilitation. Sorry. When we had initially kind of thought about this, we thought the two speakers were going to kind of have speak to us, but actually let's do a little bit of facilitation. So starting with Dr. Lynn, please can you just give us a sense of who you are and the kind of work that we do, and then after that, Sis Florence can do the same.
Thanks, Fezi, and thanks. It's really good to meet you and to share this stage with you. My name is Lynn. Lynn is fine. I think of myself as an educator and as a researcher.
A little bit louder.
Sorry. I think of myself as an educator and as a researcher, but most importantly as walking a political journey alongside feminists everywhere, alongside women everywhere, alongside revolutionaries everywhere, people who are trying to challenge, change, and thrive in a different world. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Florence Sekolane. I'm grateful to be a woman, and I have no regrets. From the platform that I'm from the domestic workers, and I'm a domestic worker myself, coming with the challenges and meeting up with people, like, in special, like people who, speak mostly about GBV and economical power over other women. I'm so grateful to be here, to be sharing stage with Dr. Lynn, and I'm sure I'll have so much to learn from you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have both of you here. Okay, so the first question, I think, is, in your view, what is the work of women? What do women do? I mean, the Tricontinental, the organization that I was referring to just now, is having a series of infographics on Instagram, Facebook, and various other social media to actually talk about the fact that women do a lot of invisibilized labor, right? And that's typically understood as care work. And women are told that we are caring, nurturing, fantastic human beings. But actually, that work is labor. You know, that is legitimate work, and it's often not given the recognition that it needs economically and socially. So maybe to start with you, Ms. Florence, what do you think is the work of women? What is the work of women?
Thank you very much for the question. I won't have the specific work that a woman does, but a woman can absolutely do anything in any way, in any field, in any department of work, or in any department of decision making. I believe we are born to be women, and we've got everything that it takes to be who we are, and to have the ability to do whatever everyone as a human being can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lynn, before I get your answer on that, one of the statistics from that book, or rather the pamphlet, says that the top 18 earners in the world are men, and they earn more collectively than all the women on the African continent put together, which is a crazy statistic. So, I mean, what are your reflections on that, but also connected to the first question that I asked Ms. Florence?
I mean, I completely agree with Sis Florence. Women absolutely do everything, and I don't think the issue is not as much that our labor is not recognized. The issue is that the functioning of capitalism and of this system in which we live in depends on a deliberate denial and disavowal of the work that women do. That is why we can, just make a decision every day to pay the absolute minimum to people who keep the streets clean and our houses clean. Our own work, choose not to call it work when we are looking after kids. It's a whole system. There's a governmentality around how we see our own work, but around a complete disavowal. So I don't think it's even that it's not it's absolutely recognized. Capitalism absolutely recognizes women's work. But there's the underside of it, there's the exploitation, but there's a realm that is even now beyond exploitation, that doesn't even enter, what Rosa Luxemburg called a non-capitalist realm, which is still very much with us. In terms of the ratio of the percentage of, you said 17% of men and the entirety of African women, yes, this is This is true. This is something we know. As women, we must also think very keenly about the women who benefit alongside that 17%, because we need them on the side of the masses. There's not just a class solidarity, a class alliance. There's also a gender alliance that, other women uphold. So we are not just, I think it's a false binary, what I'm trying to say that men and this and women and this. We have to think of the systemic structure that keeps this like this.
Yeah, I think thank you for both of your contributions. I think that they were very helpful and rich. I think about COVID-19 and the term essential workers, right? But we know that all the essential workers effectively were the most exploited and continue to be the most exploited. So we had governments clapping hands, we had weird songs from celebrities talking about all these essential workers, but the actual paradigm, the capitalist paradigm in which we are, meant that particularly care workers had to always go into work in very dangerous circumstances, right? The COVID-19 virus is still it's still a mystery actually to so many of us, but and in fact it was often Black and brown women who had to be at the forefront of doing incredibly dangerous work. This was cleaning work in conditions that we did not understand. This was making sure that people could buy food, that they were actually resourcing the various shops that we were in. So by and large, I would say that this was a pandemic for like the middle class to kind of retreat and say, oh my gosh, the world is changing. But for working class people, they really did not get that luxury and continue to be abused, really. And I mean, I just think about the infrastructure of the South African medical care in this country, and it's really dismal, but also there's also a structural element to that, right? So doctors and nurses are completely exacerbated, that's not the word, are completely overwhelmed, are completely underpaid, are under-resourced, don't also have the kinds of resources that they could to really alleviate some of the like structural problems that we face. So Sis Florence, what are some of the kinds of reflections that you might have from, the Domestic Workers Alliance about this time specifically, and the kinds of difficulties that members from your organization might have faced, or you might have faced at this time?
COVID came with a lot of challenges, especially with domestic workers, and especially the live-in ones. Because they faced like they were not allowed to go. As I speak, there's also some of the domestic workers who haven't been to their homes since it started, just because you don't have that power or that voice to say, okay, this is what I want to do. And when you look at it, it affected a lot of domestic workers because most of them were not, registered under UIF, and most of them, they work for bosses that they don't even care whatever happens to them. And it also affected the immigrant workers that were undocumented. As we speak, we are trying to fight with Department of Labor because they said now they are going to be paying those who were not registered, but it's something that is like a technical problem that is keep on pending, and is not even giving the better result. It is because as domestic workers, we don't have I would say a safe space that we call it our safe space that we can say we are creating for us as domestic workers on behalf of us, by us, to say, okay, this is what we want to do, or this is where we want to speak up and be heard, because we are always like, treated like inferior and people that are not important to the country. And we feel like our our input, we are being like, we don't have that ability to sit on the boardroom to say, okay, we can make our own decision. Other people, including our bosses, are the ones that are delaying our maybe ideas to say, okay, as a domestic worker, I feel like this, maybe you have to prioritize my health as a domestic worker. I'm being denied the right and the enough time to be with my family, especially when my kid is sick. I'll have to go to the hospital and come back and leave my kid at home and rush back to work, whereby my boss kids, when they are sick, I have to be the one there looking after them. And it doesn't matter what happens to my kids. And right now, most of the domestic workers, they've lost their jobs. They don't have income. They are the ones that go mostly in homes or maybe like looking for food parcels, of which some of them, they never get to reach them, of which it plays a bigger role. And most of these women as domestic workers are single mothers, and they are underpaid. They are not, heavy enough. They've got kids that they have to send to school, of which they find the struggle of saying now, some of the kids right now, as I speak, like 2 days ago, women, they came to me and say, look, we cannot send our kids to school because there's a certain amount of fees that is being demanded that we have to pay before our kids come to school. That's this challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you so much for that contribution. A woman that often helps, and no, it doesn't help because that's the incorrect term. That's how we invalidate the work that they do. The domestic worker that works in my house is an immigrant woman from Zambia, and because of the ways in which this country is in its real xenophobic attitude to immigrants, it means that she can't take her child to public school. She has to take her child to private school, right? And because there's particular things that private schools need that public schools might not, right? And so, this time during COVID was incredibly difficult for her because, she had to think about all the different folks that she does this work for. But, because everyone's kind of resources were curtailed at this time, people had so little money to prioritize the work of domestic workers. She really suffered during this time, and it meant that her child couldn't go to school, and that was an incredibly, frustrating thing. At the time, luckily, they're able to, but I'm just kind of thinking, Lynn, now about the intersection between, the government's real desire to further plunge immigrants and working class people into real economic precarity. So we've heard consistently, you're going to get your grants, which are ridiculous, by the way, the amounts of money. We've heard that we've got billions and billions of rands that have been given to us because of the COVID, I don't even know what it was, like the COVID fund. And then 2 seconds later, there's no money in the COVID fund because all the friends of the president have looted that money. So, it's interesting to me if I watch a lot of reality television. But it's interesting to me if you see like the rise of South African reality television and the opulence that happened during COVID-19, there is, to me, a direct link between all these political elites that are now on television showing us how many millions of rands they have and the lack of money that suddenly comes from, the government just like not having any money. But I think my question here is what are your reflections on the ways in which economic precarity almost seems like a priority for our government? It seems like they prioritize making sure that the working class and immigrants are in very difficult positions.
So to start with the point, your very important point, that the social grants that are being paid are almost negligible. I mean, you don't even have to belong in the middle class to know how little that money is. But the precise reason and even the budgets, the thinking around what to allocate presumes another structure, presumes what we might call a care structure or a social reproductive structure, which is not accounted for, and the government doesn't have to account for it. So it presumes that there's a grandmother or cousins or family that still live in the rural areas who will send tomatoes and potatoes and maize every month. We saw this in Kenya. You know, one of the most interesting things that we saw during lockdown in Kenya, and you know, I saw this in newspaper cuttings, were these buses that are public transport buses that transport passengers, were turned into goods transporting. And they were transporting food as parcels from home, from rural areas to urban families. It wasn't business. It was, my mother putting a box in the bus to send to my brother who lives in Nairobi because you simply don't have money. We saw this in Uganda, where during lockdown, the government, I'm talking hard lockdown in March. The government said, we are shutting down the whole economy, but do you know who can continue trading? Market women. So women were told you could continue selling food in the market. The condition was that you would be quarantined inside the market. It's what you're saying, Sis Florence, that these are women with families, but of course you couldn't stay with your children there. The government actually supplied mosquito nets and masks to these women in the market. That food had to be supplied. So the point I'm trying to make with the grants is that it's so little because it's already predicated on another structure, a social reproductive structure, which is what we talk about all the time. It is the people who will look after your children if I decide to come, and so on. In terms of these very negligible amounts, these are starvation rates. But to go to the point of intersectionality, and again, this is another really important point. Many of our domestic workers are not South African, which means they are not even eligible for that. Yes, they're undocumented workers. My domestic worker, I had this long conversation with her the other day, and I said, her child is in Zimbabwe, and I say, she doesn't have any documents actually. I wouldn't, of course, this is also not. I'm talking about a broader structural thing. I'm not talking about an individual, but many of them, that work are not even counted, so they're not even getting the kinds of response. So what we'll find is that there were many women, and lastly, to link up with this is there were interesting statistics that have been coming about COVID and employment in the last 2 or 3 weeks that show that the people the group that lost the least voice jobs were domestic workers compared to other workers, which tells us something. It tells us how critical we cannot do without domestic workers. But what it doesn't tell us is whether people are actually paying them. I saw a lot of the middle classes, bragging on social media about how even if your domestic worker is not working, give them money. That's not the point. The point is that people could actually say, you know what, I'm not earning money, but I want you to retain your job. Just come and work. I'll pay you when we start earning again. So they might have retained jobs, but they might be poorer in material terms. So it's all these layers of a structure that just takes for granted I always tell my students that we are not seeing dead bodies on the streets. We know that there are millions who have lost jobs during COVID. We know that there are millions who keep being expended from industry, from manufacturing. Someone is looking after them. Who is looking after them? That's the question that we are, feminists are asking, that we are asking as women and women's rights activists. That's what we want the state and capital to account for. Yeah.
Connected to that, Sis Florence, I think you phrased it so beautifully, Lynn. Who is looking after our care workers? In your experience, with the organization that you're in, do you have any kind of anecdotes or reflections as to what is actually happening on the ground with care workers and domestic workers?
For me, when I speak about, I'll speak about domestic workers. I don't see anyone who's looking after us. We've been neglected mostly, because now even our employers, they're taking advantage of the COVID, not to give the pay rise, not to, to give you full days at work, and then they'll make an excuse to say, okay, I've also lost part of my salary. I've also lost part of my maybe affordability to pay you, of which now it makes, it doesn't only suffer only a woman who's a domestic worker. Once, because it comes with the family, the people that benefit from what she's earning. So I won't say we were really like looked after. It was the neglect, the big one, that we have no way to go and cry to. Even at the CCMA, they'll try and say, okay, we need your documents. And then you find that even if you have a document, to get those funds, it was a process. It was a challenge. And at the same time, there will be kids waiting at home and you have nothing. Because as a domestic worker, you don't have any savings. You take it as it comes, to say, okay, today I have earning and I'll buy whatever it is. With the kids 24/7 in the house, saving like maybe 2 meals a day that you didn't save because you're at work and the kids at school, it becomes like it has to be a weight that weighed on a female. That, okay, now what do I have to do? And at the same time, facing the GBV, or maybe you have got an abusive partner who's abusing you, and then you don't have anywhere to go. And then if you have to report it, you are the one as a woman to say, okay, we have to remove you to a safe space. Which one is the safe space without my kids? Which one is the safe space? Because it's like now somebody's deciding for you and you don't have any voice to say, okay, I want to stay here. You're always the one to be taken away from the comfort. And then this person who's like abusing you have to stay with your kids, and then you don't know what's happened. And when you go to work, the same person, maybe your boss, who's a woman, has got power over you, because she's got the power of economical that you don't have. And it's a struggle. I wouldn't say we are. They are still suffering. They're still going on, and we are really, like, it's stressing, it's weighing. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. In closing, I'm going to start with you, Lynn. It's a broad question, and you can make it as small and contextual as possible. But, what does, I'm going to use the word freedom, potentially look like for women? And it can be, Nina Simone says, what freedom is for me is no fear. And I mean that, no fear, right? And I think about that, and I think about, as a survivor, I am completely afraid of men, completely, and to me, it's there's real fear, and to me that is what freedom is. So, what are your thoughts on what freedom is?
That's always a very subjective question and idea. But a good example is, early last year, just before COVID hit, I was doing some research work among the Sudanese women revolutionaries. So I was trying to understand what happened and just the role, because we know that the Sudan revolution would not have been possible without women, young, old, tea sellers. They were all, all stripes. And one of the most interesting discussions I had was sitting with a group of women whose day job is to sell tea on the streets, and ask them this same question, because of course formally the revolution happened and the middle class, the sort of elite feminist movement take over the discourse and say, now we are free, we have won, we want seats. And these women say, they made a very interesting point, and they kept saying it. And they said that we got, the freedom that we got was a political one, a formal freedom. That the revolution we won was a political one, that we haven't won the social revolution. And that stayed with me. And so when they started translating it, for them it meant, for the tea seller, it meant sitting and selling your tea without the police coming to harass you. No, just the freedom to do your job. If I want to sell from 5 in the morning until midnight, nobody will come. And for young women, it meant not having to conform with the sort of restrictions around Sharia and what, So it was translated in so many ways, but for me, so long as we haven't reconciled this space between the political and the social, because as Sis Florence is saying, as we all know, women's liberation cannot be simply a question of a formal political progression. The burden that we carry is a social burden, which is also a political burden. That's why we talk of social reproduction. We don't just talk of reproduction. So that is the other structure that we have to think of. And I think of it, and I think each of us can think of that in very minute ways, whether it is in our personal spaces, whether it is as survivors, because we are always thinking of this, whether it is as children in the house, or workers of every stripe. Yeah.
Mrs. Florence, what are your thoughts on what freedom looks like for you?
For me, freedom, I would say it's a matter of being given your voice back and be able to, speak up and be able to empower someone who's looking up to you to say, okay, that is Florence and this is what she stands for. But I won't say I've seen it. I'm still singing it, because there is a woman out there who has been denied at a certain position that she qualifies to. A woman who has been, denied for some certain rights. Like now, when you look at the girl child and the boy child, you said when I go to like NSFAS, they will be given the same amount of the expenditure, of which a girl has to buy pads, a girl has to go and buy, do hairstyle, a girl, then for me, I would say I'm still singing it. I haven't seen it. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Those were such rich, layered discussions, and I think what we've been able to successfully do is not do the girl boss thing that everyone else is doing today. This was a very important discussion. Thank you so much for your time, for your intellectual generosity, and for being so committed to the liberation of women. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
For having us.
Okay, so what a wonderful conversation we just had. Now we are going to have Buttercup, who, like I said before, is a neo-soul artist based in Johannesburg. Her songs take a listener on a journey of love, loss, and healing, and so we're really excited to hear what Buttercup has for us.
Wasn't it number 1? So intro. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Buttercup, and today I am accompanied by 2 friends of mine, Nzani on guitar and Ludo on the beatboxing. It's been a while since I've done this, but yeah, let's get into it. What a time to start. Women's Month and all. Yay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. I know, I know, I know, I know, hey, I know, I know, I know, I know. Oh, come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. I know, I know, I know, I know, hey, I know, I know, I know, I come a little closer now, come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Come a little closer, let me tell you something. Oh, won't you come a little closer, let me tell you something. And then the next track is titled Wake Up. 1, 2, 3. I know the places we can go. I know you surely wanna go. Gonna take you higher, where you will inspire and get what you desire. All you have to do is call. Oh. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're sleeping on yourself. Get up, get up, get up, get up. You're trying to be someone else. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're sleeping on yourself. Get up, get up, get up, get up. You're trying to be someone else. Hey, I know this place is hard to let go. And I know you surely wanna go. Gonna take you higher, where you will inspire and get what you desire. And all you have to do is call. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're sleeping on yourself. Get places we can go. And I know you surely wanna go. Gonna take you higher, where you will inspire and get what you desire. All you have to do is go.
The next track is called It's Been a While, because I haven't done this in a while, so it's been a while. 1, 2, 3. I tried to sweep up the leaves in the garden, a random gust of wind blew them away. And now I'm sitting, comprehending, contemplating, is this love even real? Hey, it's been a while, space, distance, and time, it can hold us back. Hey, it's been a while, space, distance, and time, it can hold us back. And we're still here, hearts full of cheer, our love is real. Hey, and we're still here, hearts full of cheer, our love is real. Can you take me to the first time we met? Can you show me exactly how you felt? All the crazy things we used to do. Oh, baby, I wish we could go back. Our love, we should roll that. Oh, it's been a while. Space, distance, and time, it can hold us. No, it can hold us back. Whoa. And we're still here, hearts full of cheer. Our love is real. It's been a while, space, distance, and time can hold us back. It's been a while. And the last song for the day, I know they said 3 songs, but I haven't done this in a while. So the last song is called I'm Sitting Here. 1, 2, 3. I'm sitting here, watching the time go by, wondering why do I have you up on my mind, when it's pretty clear that you never felt the same. Tears, they just fell like the rain. How can I heal the pain? Though I admit sometimes you cross my mind, and I wish that we could turn back the time. Oh boy, you don't deserve a love like mine. Oh boy, you don't deserve a love like mine. Oh, oh, how can I let this go? I need to let myself grow. Need to be strong on my own. And you know that, oh, 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 you wasted all your chances. You never had the answers. Now watch me go, 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 go. I need you to let this go. My heart you'll never own. Now watch me go, 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 go. Said I watch me
a trip. Oh, come get your shit. I said I'm sick with it, done with it. Use a trip. Oh, come get your shit. Come get. I'm sitting here watching the time go by, wondering why do I have you up on my mind when it's pretty clear that you never felt the same. Tears they just felt like rain. And oh boy, I think we could turn back the time. We could turn back the time. I'm sitting here thinking clear. Come get your shit. Come get your shit. I'm sitting here thinking clear. You shit. Come get your. Now this is just a come get your shit. I'm leaving right now. Leaving right now. Come get your shit. Come get your shit. Leaving now. You're leaving now.
Oh my gosh, can we get another round of applause for Buttercup? I mean, she apologized for giving us a fourth song, but I want a fifth, a sixth, a seventh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just, artistic contributions are always, to me, the most special. It's been such a difficult time about COVID-19, not being able to kind of, listen to live music. As a theatre practitioner myself, I think that process and I think that live performance is always the most exciting because I think also, it helps me think politically. I don't think that we have resolved political ideologies. I think they are a work in progress. And the best way that we can always think about that is thinking through live performance and watching artists figure it out, sometimes a chord goes off and then they resolve it immediately. And then I think that's something that we can think about in our fight for liberation, right? Is that it's not a linear trajectory, that it's quite rhizomatic, which means that it goes in different directions all the time. And we just need to figure it out, to finally get excellent performances. So thank you so much, Buttercup. That was so beautiful. Thank you. So we've come to the end of our program. Thank you so much for those of you who've joined us on the stream, for those of you who are still going to watch and are still going to share this YouTube video. Just a little bit about the programming that's coming up. The 25th, 26th, and 27th. Please be on the lookout for our socials. We have Islilo coming up, which is a play about the Life Estimeni tragedy. Mbonga is the writer and researcher and also one of the performers in it. We'll have a really fantastic conversation with him later on in the month, I think on the 22nd, which is the day after what South Africans call Human Rights Day, but actually is Sharp Day. So in kind of commemoration of what's happening in mental health facilities across the country, we're going to have a discussion around that. On the 19th of March, we're going to have a conversation about public health and how public health is connected to human rights. So check our social media for that. Also, there's just going to be some really fantastic stuff. We've launched the Forge Radical Calendar today, which we are so incredibly excited about. So please just check that out. It is a work in progress. So, just kind of bear with us. It's month to month. We're still kind of uploading things. We are only a team of 8, so things are tough in terms of trying to figure out all that stuff. There are so many exciting things that are happening in March. There are equally exciting things that are happening in April. So just make sure to follow our YouTube page, follow our Instagram page, the Forge JHB, the Commune JHB. There's some really, really cool, fantastic live performances coming up, but also really important political discussions that we're going to be having. March sits at the intersection between International Women's Workers' Day along with Human Rights Month. So this is a really exciting for us to exciting time for us to program, and an exciting time for us to think through the world in which we live in Johannesburg and on the African continent as well. Thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed this at home. Thank you for the people that are here, who are masked and sanitized and really talented. Thank you so much to our 2 speakers, who are just so incredibly smart and were so generous. I think people don't, guys, speaking is tough. And to speak with such eloquence and such grace and to speak with such political precision is something that we really need to say thank you to. So thank you also to our co-director, Yvonne, who's always fantastic. Siyabonga, Yvonne. See you at the next event. Thank you so much.